I call the March 14th Ludington City Council meeting to order. Welcome. Thank you for your attendance. Before we proceed, please check your electronic devices and ensure they are silenced. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilor Terzano,
Present.
Councilor May, Councilor Winchesky,
Here.
Councilor Johnson,
Here.
Councilor Stibbitz,
Here.
Councilor Kane,
Present.
Councilor Bulger.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. In lieu of an invocation, please join me in 20 seconds of silence and self-reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll open the floor for public comment. I request anyone wishing to address council, please step to the lectern and proceed after stating your name and address. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes. Please speak directly into the microphone and address all your comments to this chair. There'll be another public comment opportunity following communication from city officials, and the floor is open for public comment.
Hello, my name is Ron Sobrowski. I own commercial property in Ludington, but I attended a meeting a few years back about discussion of marijuana dispensaries in the city of Ludington, and I never really heard an answer. I think it got tabled, postponed to look into, to research, and is there any discussion or is there any answer that you can have for that as far as where the city's going to move, what they're going to do?
I'll answer that if you don't mind, council. Not at this time.
Okay.
Still looking into it.
We're all aware of what's going on in Scottville. I think it's all been hashed out before, but I think the city's missing an opportunity here, and you should look into it and consider it. Thank you for your time.
There's no other comment. I'll close the floor.
Tom Rada, Dowland Street. I'm trying to understand the necessity of the 5-year composting contract the council is considered tonight. Like the sidewalk installation contract from 2 regular meetings ago and others over this last year, the competitive bidding process has been ignored by DPW Superintendent Joe Stickney, City Manager Mitch Foster, and ultimately the council. Unless the city can produce some rationale as to why skipping the bidding process works out better for the city is patently against the city charter, that is illegal to forego the process. When no rationale is given, citizens have to presume that once again, the city is corruptly engaging in cronyism and that our elected officials are not concerned one whit with saving the taxpayers' money or getting them quality products, just in greasing the palm of their favorite corporations and individuals. Our own state senator, Kurt Vanderwall, owns a company called Turf Care. He got his contract with the city after submitting a bid that was much higher than another qualified bid. But this council stuck with his company despite their oaths to a state constitution, which says in Article 4, Section 10 that, quote, no member of the legislature, Kurt Vanderwall, shall be interested directly or indirectly in any contract with any political subdivision thereof, which shall cause a substantial conflict of interest. Considering all factors, this was a substantial conflict of interest. This council's municipal bribe to corrupt Kurt has resulted in payments to Vanderwall's company totaling $6,320 in this meeting alone. Thousands more were illicitly sent to him in February for his services. The contract with corrupt Kurt's business states quite clearly that they will bill for services performed in the following billing cycle. I asked this council, what sort of fertilizing and weed control is he doing in February for the city? Since your mouths will not answer that question, I'll answer for you. He has done nothing. He is pre-charging you for what he expects to do this summer. You will allow him to break the contract terms because you are afraid of offending your brought and paid for senator. Maybe you can explain to the taxpayers what favors you are buying from this ethics compromised state senator and whether it's worth the loss of trust, money, and other resources of our overburdened taxpayers without such illicit connections. But back to the compost contract terms. Why will we spend upwards of $70,000 this year just to get our leaf compost pile shipped across the state? Why does the contract not allow for us to retain any of the soil created by our composted leaves? Is there not a better and more cost-effective way to do this?
Any further public comment? If not, I'll close public comment and move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the council's minutes of the February 28th, 2022 regular meeting, the approval of the council minutes of the February 28th, 2022 committee of the whole, the approval of bill payment for the period commencing February 28th, 2022, and the adoption of this agenda as presented. Council, do I have a motion to approve this consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Except, Mr. Mayor, you said council meeting of the whole. It was the closed session.
Thank you. Please note that correction. Thank you, councilors. We have a motion by Councilor Terzano, seconded by Councilor Johnson to approve the consent agenda as it's been verbally amended. Any questions or additions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have committee and staff reports, and we'll hear first from the Finance and Personnel Committee. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have no report tonight. We do have a couple of action items. The first one is to approve the 2021 budget amendments. The city budgeted for general fund expenditures to exceed general fund revenues by $624,700. The actual results were such that general fund revenues exceeded expenditures by $81,100. Revenues increased $572,800 more than what was budgeted. And there is a list of items that is different than what was budgeted for, but it's It's a lengthy list, so I won't read over that. So I will make a motion to approve the proposed 2021 budgetary amendments.
I'll second.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Winchesky to approve the 2021 budget amendments as presented. Council, we have any questions or additions?
I have one, Mayor, if we could ask the city manager, can you explain why we didn't spend the money we projected to spend last year?
Yes, absolutely. Part of the reason behind not being able to spend this money, if you go down, I'll say the second page of this description, we didn't spend the $200,000 that we had budgeted on the Rubble Mound Pier, which is now under construction, or should be as soon as ice goes away. We didn't spend that in 2021. That'll be completed in 2022. Sidewalk expenses were down just based on the market and changing conditions. Really, and additionally, we had some holes from a staffing standpoint, in particular in the police department. We've been essentially an officer down for a full year. And that still continues to this day. So between all of those things, that's where you see those dollars not being spent. Beyond that, some of our other areas, we've also just not been able to do projects. One thing I'll note on that same line, construction's way behind on a number of items, and we were informed last week that the South Washington Avenue project, Councilor Stibbits, will not occur until next year. We are 25 weeks out on PVC piping for the water portion of that. So instead of us waiting and trying to do a fall road reconstruction project, they're going to wait and do the reconstruction in the spring. They will still do Water Street this year, but Washington Avenue will not be redone. Yep.
Are we spending that money somewhere else, or are we just going to keep it?
We'll hold on to it until next year's project. One thing that we might look to do is maybe flip-flop a smaller scale project. One of the things that was cut from the budget was mill and fill on the portion of Washington north of the bridge. We may be able to bring that back in, but again, that's got to be something we evaluate in the budget and bring to finance.
Any other questions or comments? Motion by Counselor Johnson was seconded by Counselor Winchesky to approve the 2021 budget amendments as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion is carried.
Next item we have is to approve a letter of agreement with the SEIU union. In 2019, the city of Ludington agreed to a new bargaining agreement with the SEIU union, which represents our public works, water plant, and wastewater plant employees, which would extend until the end of 2022. In this agreement, the employees agreed to hold wages steady from June 2021 until the end of the contract, which at the time was not a massive impact. However, with the onset of the pandemic and the incredible inflation, their wage freeze has been a huge hit on their budgets, and the low wages have caused issues with recruitment and retention of employees. So we have come to a tentative agreement for $1.25 an hour wage increase for all positions in the SEIU. For the remainder of the year, this increase will amount to a wage line increase of approximately $51,000 split amongst three funds. And there is some language changes that I will ask the city manager to explain. If you would.
Absolutely. One of the items that we got as a give back from the SEIU was essentially the way that our contract currently reads, as you see in your packet. At no time may an eligible employee carry a balance of more than 40 hours of compensatory time in a calendar year. What that means is you can't have 40 hours in your bank, more than 40 hours in your bank. But essentially you could earn up to 40, use 8, get another 8, use 20, get another 20, and keep recycling it over and over again. What the give back that the SEIU gave was that they can only earn 40 hours in a calendar year. So as soon as you earn 40, you're done. You don't get to earn it and keep re-earning it over and over again. Part of the issue is it's a accounting nightmare for some of our departments internally. It's also a staffing issue. You know, these folks earn vacation and sick time, and now in addition, they get the comp time that occurs most of the time in the summer after they've earned it in the winter time, especially our public works with all the plowing. In the summertime is when we're also very, very busy. And so between public works, wastewater, and water, having that many people out is difficult. So this was a good give back for us to get this out of the contract and changed.
So if they use 20 hours and they have 20 hours left at the end of the year, they lose that?
Yep.
Or-
Yeah, within the contract and our personal handbook, you have to make a choice. As a public entity, this is different for those of you that don't work in public entities. You also, other than overtime, you can also take overtime as comp time or compensatory time, which means it just is free time or time off instead of the overtime. They make that choice whether it's comp time that they earn or overtime. If on December 30th, they decide they want to earn 10 hours of comp time, then they have to use it on December 31st, or else it's gone. So
Thank you.
So more than likely, they would vote to get paid for that.
you would hope so,
Yeah.
especially if they have the 31st off already.
I will make a motion to approve the letter of agreement from the Service Employees International Union Local 517M.
I'll support the motion.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Stibbits to approve the letter of agreement between the City of Ludington and Service Employees International Union Local 517M as presented. Council, have any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
And that's all I have for this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Moving on to Public Safety, Public Utilities. In the absence of Counselor May, the Chair, Counselor Bulger, please.
Thank you. We have no report tonight. We do have one action item. The agenda says to adopt ordinance 468-22. However, you may recall we had a discussion at the last meeting of the Morgan composting potential contract and voted to approve it. However, because of the length of the contract, it would actually require us to adopt an ordinance. While there is a fair argument to be made that the discussion we had last time could count for a first reading, since we didn't have the text of the ordinance, we've determined that the better approach is to treat this as a first presentation and vote on the adoption of the ordinance at our next meeting. You might recall that this situation came about because we do our leaf pickup, deliver it to a facility east of the cemetery. The Eagle, which regulates it in the near future, is going to require considerable maintenance, including removal or treatment of waste material, wastewater that is developed at the site. Actually, Eagle suggested contacting Morgan Composting because they're one of the few places in the state that do the kind of work. If we do approve the ordinance, Morgan Composting will be taking over from the city the responsibility of maintaining the facility and complying with any requirements imposed by Eagle. If I remember correctly from our discussions, we would actually still get access to some of the composted products. Right now, there's way more than the city needs, and removing it and whittling the pile down would be better environmentally, and we'll still have access to it for our own needs. So with that, I would note that we're having a first reading of proposed ordinance 468-22.
Thank you. Anything further?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you. Move on to buildings and licenses and long-range planning. Counselor Terzano.
I have no report tonight, Your Honor, but I have 3 action items. First presentation for them. The first one is first presentation for ordinance number 469-22, accessory commercial units. The proposed ordinance on accessory commercial units has already been in existence, but the text committee of the Planning Commission met to change the percentage of the accessory commercial unit that may be used for a home business, as well as defining what an ACU and home occupation is. We held a public hearing on March 2nd, where we adopted the language for this ordinance change. Any questions on it?
Yeah, I do, Counselor Terzano. Just a couple things. On here, it says that the ACU is defined as a, quote, small detached commercial unit. So like a garage maybe, or a small unit next to the house.
Yeah, but
beyond the house.
it's not attached to the house.
And then I was just wondering, in section 6 there, it says no more than 20% of the total floor area of the residence can be used. So they could use either part of their house for an ACU or a separate building on their land?
No, you can have a home occupation in your house itself. And only 20% of the square footage can be dedicated towards that home occupation. For the accessory dwelling unit, because it's a separate structure, 100% of that space can be used for your business.
So just so I got this straight too, the 20% in a house, could I like sell bicycles, have a bicycle shop in my house? Or could I have it in a garage next to my house? Both those things would be okay?
Both those things would be okay, but in your house, you could only have 20% of your square feet. Whereas in your accessory unit, you could have 100. You could use the whole building, your garage, or that new unit you put in.
Yep, okay, good. I like the stipulation too, that things have to be kind of like behind closed doors. They can't have 10 boats sitting outside or something with the commercial building too, so.
Yeah, that was some language that was added because we do have some home occupations where stuff is out in the yards right now. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Second action item is the first presentation, ordinance number 470-22, a rezoning of 1228 South Madison Street. Planning Commission received a request from the owner of Pomorski's Tavern. He also owns the 2 parcels right across Fifth Avenue from him. So it's on the northwest corner of Madison and Fifth Street. That area previously was commercial area, but then it got rezoned to R2A. And he's asking that his 2 parcels be rezoned to commercial. He wants to put in, what do you call it, a crate?
A container.
Possibly a container unit.
Container unit, yeah, right, I forgot. Container unit to serve some food and also put some tables out there so people who are either at the tavern can walk across the street and sit outside and eat and stuff like that. And if you have any questions, he happens to be here about what he's planning on doing. If,
Hi, I'm John Kelly. I'm the owner of the lot in question. And like he said, it was historically a commercial zoning on the property. And that was pretty much the whole street, Madison, there was pretty much commercial. And we'd like to start a little bit more commercial development in the area. It's sort of all been going downtown, and there's a lot of wait for food and seating in the summertime. So it's just going to be a summertime thing, and maybe a couple pedestals for food trucks. So it can be like a little food court in the fourth ward.
So all the food wouldn't be prepared at Pomorski's.
No, it wouldn't be.
They would be able to.
They would be, yeah, that would be a separate thing in the container unit. We'd bring gas, water, and electricity into the building there, and then have 2 electric hookups for possibly 2 food trucks too. So it could be like a little food court in the summertime to help relieve some of the overburdened downtown area for food.
Have you thought a little bit about parking too? I mean, you have a parking lot, I think, for Primorski's, don't you?
Yeah,
Kind of-
there's quite a bit of street parking.
And there
yes.
is quite a bit of street, yep.
I guess my one question that I have, John, is with the state, are you going to be able to sell alcohol there?
No, we would, we have a to-go license, and it'd be sort of where you can buy a drink with a lid on it or a beer to go, and then you could sit out in the food court and have a beverage with your meal.
Okay, so with that, you wouldn't be required to have restrooms or porta-johns out
We'll
there?
have porta-johns, yes,
Okay.
definitely would have porta-johns,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question about the change from residential to commercial. Is there like fencing that has to be in place in something like this? Or is it just like this is an open lot that's commercial and then next door to it is residential? Like there isn't any requirements for differentiating what is this lot and what is the residential area, right? Okay.
Which would, possibly if that became an issue, we could install fencing.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
thank you, Mr. Kelly. Last item is first presentation on ordinance 471-22, building height. Planning Commission, along with the advice from the building inspector, Sean Reed, has reviewed the building height requirements and found that the story height is an unnecessary measurement and that the maximum building height in feet is sufficient. We've had in the ordinance, 2.5 stories, whatever that means. You could have 20, a 20-foot, story. So we're getting rid of the stories and it's all will be in feet. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller,
Yes?
if I could go back just a minute, I'd like to ask Counselor Trezano one more question about the ACUs.
Oh,
I
okay.
just made a note here. What happens on the sale of a house? So if someone sells their house and they have an ACU, say, in their garage, can that?
They can't have an ACU in the garage. An ACU has to, and is a totally separate building.
Okay, and when they sell the house, does someone have to come to the city and ask if they can use it as an ACU too, or does it just go with the sale of the house?
They could use that unit for whatever it is they want to. Unless they want to try to make it a dwelling unit, then they're going to have to come.
Then they've
back.
got to come to us for that. Okay. So is there any approval of someone putting a business in a building next to their house, John? Is there anything?
There are certain requirements when it comes to noise and lighting and dust and all, so you're not going to be able to put, a little mill factory
Right. Okay.
in your accessory commercial unit. I mean, it's really designed for people that, I don't know. I was going to say candle making, but now that we got former beer camps becoming a candle making shop, but
That kind of,
usually it's usually a small home business,
Maybe like a hair salon
like a hair salon.
or something
A
similar.
bike shop was the example used earlier.
yes.
Yeah.
Right down the street, the canvas shop.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right next door.
Yep, thank you.
sure. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Cemetery Parks and Recreation, Counselor Stibitz.
Yes, thank you. We had an exciting Cemetery Parks and Recreation waterfront meeting, and I just kind of want to, for a report, highlight some of the things that we had talked about. We talked about a weather station at the Loomis Street boat ramp and Stearns Park telescopes. If you recall those telescopes that where you can go and put a quarter into and look out at the pier there. They're getting very outdated. And so we have some information on some new things coming with the telescopes. We talked about rentals in the picnic pavilions, mainly the Maritime Heritage Picnic Pavilion and the Capian Park. We have lots of requests for those. And so we're drafting an ordinance to kind of bring some of that information forward, and we'll bring that soon. And we also had a request from Noah's Legacy Project for rental of some park space. But because their request was right in the middle of Gus Macker and 4th of July, or Gus Macker and West Shore, the West Shore concert series, we just really don't have enough DPW people to facilitate this request. So we kind of went back to their organization, and they're going to get back with us with maybe some new dates to help accommodate them. And for our action items today, we would like to approve a permanent station location at Cartier Park Pathway. And we do have Sarah Tarenko here if we have any additional questions, but she is here from the West Shore Educational Service District, mainly a program called Inspired Reading. And twice in 2021, the West Shore Educational Service District hosted reading walks along the Cartier Pathway, where they also placed pages of books on stands along the pathway for families to engage with. As these two events, plus the several walks hosted by the Conservation District along the pathway have gained in popularity, the West Shore ESD has inquired to the potential of installing permanent holders along the path. And this would make it easier for the Inspire Reading program to host these events while also saving money in the long run. Sarah, did you happen to bring the board of yes. So what we're looking at is trying to accept a request. Sarah has the main face of the stand, and it would be permanently installed into the ground along the pathway, parallel with the pathway, of course, so that it wasn't sticking out, cause for trouble or maintenance or anything like that. And then in what would happen is the ESD or the Inspire Reading program would put the pages of the book into the stands, and they would maintain those pages in the book. They would do an event, and then the pages in the books would stay at the park for a month, and then they would switch out the plan. So with a new book that families would be able to enjoy. We had talked about several, potential different places for the stands and the number of stands. And so we're really kind of excited as a Parks and Rec committee to kind of bring this to the council. So the programming of park facilities around the city are identified as a goal within the master plan. And all upfront expenses will be covered by the West Shore Education Service District, and we're working with the community foundations on maintaining repair costs. One thing that we did discuss is the potential of vandalism, because unfortunately things do get vandalized in that park in particular. And so we are working with other community organizations to make sure that if something is vandalized, we do have the funds to replace it. So I make a motion to improve the installing of the reading walk stands along the Cartier Park pathway.
I'll second.
Motion by Counselor Stibitz, seconded by Counselor Winchesky to approve the installation of permanent reading stations along the Cartier Park walkway as presented. Council, have any questions or comments?
I also just want to point out that in your packet, there's, if you look at like page 50, and then I think let me just scroll up. There's quite a few on page 55 and thereafter. There's a lot of pamphlets about what inspired reading's goals are and how this program will help the West Shore Educational Service District meet those goals of getting books in hands of kids and helping the community. And so if you had any questions about, inspired reading or what the permanent book stations would look like, you can find those in your packet on page 55, 56, and so forth.
Any other comments or questions? We have before us a motion by Counselor Stibbits, second by Counselor Winchesky to approve the installation of permanent reading stations along the Cartier Park walkway as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Congratulations.
And that's all for tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Open the floor up to City Council comments.
I have something, Your Honor.
Mhm.
I'd like to thank Counselor Winchesky, Counselor Bolger, and the representative from the Ludington Daily News. The last coffee with the counselors that I did with Commissioner Bolger had at least a dozen people there. And in all my times doing it, never had that many folks. So with your advocacy and always talking about it, I'm sure your article that came out the day before helped. And I want to thank Councilman Bolger because I was a little bit late. And so he got the initial frustration discussion. And so by the time I got there,
I was happy to see you arrive and cut out for the rest of the meeting mostly. But, it was very interesting and it was good attendance. I really actually enjoyed it.
that's it, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the City Council? Move on to City Manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a few items of note off of my report before I have one big item in my report and then one item for potentially action, I hope. Working on a news release as requested by the Finance Committee. You'll note that later in the agenda under the mayor's report. There's some of my goals are in there, and I've already started working on one of them. We have another brownfield guidelines discussion with the County Personnel and Rules Committee tomorrow morning. Hopefully that, again, moves us in a positive direction with changing some of those policies. And then we're still working on a couple of ordinance changes or ordinances for alley vacation and alley rededication with Attorney Hammersley dealing specifically with Lakeview. Just a couple of property tweaks there to get that property looking like what the developer hopes it looks like in the end. So that's all I have for reports briefly, unless there are questions. I do want to hit on the ARPA item real quick as well. Perfect. The ARPA item, as you'll see on the page behind my report, I have listed out there the projects that received the most votes in green. Those projects come up to about $328,000. And then after talking to staff, I highlighted the other projects in yellow. Again, those are just staff suggestions. They don't have to be taken. But that gets another $120,000, leaving $3,000 for consideration. I would request or ask that council take action here probably at that first meeting in April when Councilor May returns to try to identify projects and help us move forward so that we can start working on some of these or allocating funds out. That'll give us a little bit of time to start figuring out how and when and who to contact to get all these projects rolling along. So I appreciate council and the public's participation in looking at those projects. Any questions on the ARPA items?
Nothing is set in stone, correct?
Nope.
The green or the yellow?
Nope. Green is just what got really, to me, once you hit 10 votes, you kind of separated it. And so that's why I have those 10 all highlighted in that dark green.
So the dark green highlighted ones, I'm just looking at like year-round homeless shelter.
Yep.
There isn't a cost estimate, but there is an average contribution. Is the average contribution what we're putting into the,
Really, yes,
the funds?
because if you remember on the white sheets that were on the wall,
Mhm.
everybody was allowed to also put a dollar amount in
Yes.
there. And so that's what I kind of did, is I took pictures of all of them, went through all of the dots and tried to get an average as to what was allocated
Perfect.
towards each of those projects.
okay.
And if you showed up to that meeting, then you had a vote.
That is
And your
correct.
vote counted.
That's
Oh, it sure did.
at least on this sheet of paper.
Mhm.
If there's no other questions, I do have one item for potential action. I'll leave it at that. In a previous meeting, I mentioned the idea of having city council appoint members of its body to attend meetings of other bodies. Obviously, it's not possible on every of these bodies that are listed. It's actually on page 83. But it's just a suggestion. I've done it. I've seen it in other communities, and it really helps keep good relations up with those other communities. You can, request to be placed on the agenda for a reoccurring item, essentially a City of Ludington update, and then they can essentially send someone here and have a PM township or a county update. But this is just a suggestion from me to council to consider it. You don't have to take action, just something I think would be of benefit to the community as a whole. So,
Just a comment on that too. When we did the master plan, would have been about 6 years ago, we got together with Hamlin Township, PM Township, and the city of Ludington to do that. And I sure learned a lot about our out county people. Like they have septic tanks. We don't have septic tanks at all. They didn't understand that we had sewers to every single house and we didn't have to do any of that. There was a lot of communication, I think, that really helped us understand each other more. So I think this would be a great idea to do this if we could do this. Mhm.
Can I ask this? I'm not sure if anybody's put any thought to this right away, exactly which meetings and timing works best for them. Can we get back with you personally and let you know what fits our schedule as a council?
absolutely, that's perfectly okay. If this is even something that council wants to do, if this is, then what I can do is I'd be happy to also reach out to that governing body and essentially say that, when a counselor shows up, they'd love to give just a brief update on what is going on with the city so that you are kept in the loop, and see if they'd be willing to just put a little update line on their agendas as well from the city of Ludington. So if that's the case, if that's the direction that council wants to go. But that is all I have for this evening. Unless,
Just one more comment. The
Yep.
city of Scottville now has their meetings on the second
and fourth.
Monday.
Yep. Yes, they have switched those. But I would be happy to coordinate whatever necessary. Unless there are other questions or comments, that is all I have for this evening, Your Honor.
So council, if you're interested, please contact for further, either commitment or conversation, contact city manager. And if you would, in the next few days, hopefully by the end of the week, take a look at your calendars and have any questions answered, and we can proceed when we meet next time if that's what direction people want to go. Thank you. Moving on to the mayor's report. I was asked to speak to anybody assembled in front of the Ludington District Library or the Mason County District Library on Saturday in support of Ukraine. I personally was proud to do that, and people have their own reasoning behind it. I have an Eastern European family background, and I'm proud and honored to have been asked, and I appreciate the comment and the length of quote of that speech that was posted in the Ludington Daily News. But I also promised at that time for those folks who haven't seen it and won't to read that again this evening. So if you will bear with me, here is what I gave as a speech on Saturday. I won't have to yell it into a microphone in -2 wind chill. Slava Ukraini. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. On February 24th, Vladimir Putin purposely set into motion the human catastrophe that has taken the lives of thousands and now threatens the tenable security of the whole of Europe and the whole of the world. Now embroiled in a third week of fighting for democracy and their own self-rule, Ukraine continues to fight courageously. Throughout, in this country, From a comfortable front row seat, we have watched the horrors and the terrors of war in real time. The videos and photographs of the annihilation of democratic Ukraine and the faces of the victim of this invasion are reflective of the unspeakable pain and suffering imposed upon the people of Europe during the Second World War. The establishment of fundraisers, ingenious donation campaigns of supplies, and the divesting of business and monetary interest in Ukraine's oppressor have helped fill the void of helplessness that many of us have felt as we watch this disaster continuing before our eyes. We safely put our children to bed each night and waken with them each morning, and we do so under the security and protection of the institutions and processes that have held our democracy in place for over 250 years. In this country, we are privileged to rise each day without the very real threat of death and destruction at the hands and desires of any foreign entity. The democratically elected government and the families of Ukraine are no longer afforded that same security. It is incumbent here in Ludington, Michigan, as it is for every free citizen of the world, to stand up and speak out against such blatant, unrestrained, and violent hostilities. The wise word of Lord Krishna resounds loudly for the free people of the world and for the fighting people of Ukraine. If you don't fight for what you want, you cry for what you have lost. The proud people of Ukraine have understood and lived this idiom for centuries. Today, on the behalf of the citizens of Ludington, I call upon the pride, the strength, and the full capacity of the American government to lead the charge of assisting Ukraine in exposing the merciless crimes of war perpetrated upon the defenders of freedom, removing the invaders from Ukrainian soil, and assist in rebuilding their country. Our support for freedom and democracy in Ukraine is support for free people everywhere. In whatever capacity you can, please support the people of Ukraine with your voices, donations, and actions. Let the world know the citizens of Ludington, Michigan stand with the citizens of Ukraine in their fight for freedom and democratic survival. Thank you. Slava Ukraini, which means glory to Ukraine. Thank you for your indulgence. I'll move on. The approval of City Manager 2022 goals. Following weeks of deliberation, the Finance and Personnel Committee has finalized its recommendation to full council regarding the 2022 goals for City Manager Foster. These goals are listed in your packet, and they represent a uniform pathway to an objective review of the city manager's yearly performance. And I seek a motion to approve the city manager's 2022 goals as presented.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Johnson, seconded by Counselor Terzano to approve the city manager's 2022 goals as presented. And I'll open the floor for any questions or comments.
I guess I would just like to say, Your Honor, that we discussed these goals in length with the Personnel Finance Committee, and we felt that they were all good goals and very attainable. So I'm looking forward to see what he does, how he does.
Les, in your tenure here, is this the first time we've set goals for the
Yes, it is.
city manager?
It is, yep.
Thank you and the mayor and the committee for doing this.
Counselor Bolger?
Yeah, I'd echo Counselor Kane's comment. I will confess that my contribution to the last evaluation, coming on kind of late in the game, was pretty useless, probably. And part of the reason was I didn't really have a standard to measure against. This set of goals will really facilitate the process and make it much more meaningful, I think, to do evaluations. And I just appreciate the work that you and the committee have put into this. I think it'll pay off at the end of the year, beginning of next year.
I think, for a few years now, we've been looking at trying to do something different with the city manager's goals. And I have to say, Mr. Mayor, you spent probably more time on this than anybody. And I think we've come up with a very good plan. And I do appreciate the help that you gave us on this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. If I can, the goals were based upon a SMART goal setting for an objective evaluation, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And none of these goals would be on this page if they didn't hit all 5 of those criteria. And appreciate the work the Finance and Personnel Committee put into this. And if there are no more questions or comments, I'll ask council to signify by aye whether to approve the city manager's 2022 goals.
Just one, I'm sorry, just one more comment. And the city manager has signed off on these, correct?
Yes, I have. Thank you for asking.
He was very much part of this whole process. Thank you, Doug. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Due to the potential impact on the litigation strategy of the city pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act, I ask for a motion to adjourn for the purpose of moving into closed session to consult with legal counsel, limiting discussion to the recently received attorney-client privileged communications regarding the action strategy of the city of Ludington with respect to the city's fire siren. Council, please note, entering into a closed session for this stated reason requires a 2/3 majority affirmative vote of the entire council. Do I have a motion?
Before that, the agenda has meeting open for public comment before the closed session. Do we want to do that, or
Do we do that after?
just throwing that out there?
Well, given the length of the last one, I think it's prudent that we hear public comment first, and I'm sorry for getting this out of order. I'll revert back to this, if you don't mind. Let me find my spot here. Here we go. We'll move to public comment before we proceed for asking for a closed session. Anyone wishing to address council, please step to the lectern and proceed after stating your name and address. Please speak directly into the microphone and address all comments to this chair. Each speaker is allotted 2 minutes. Floor is open.
My name is Ron Sabraski. I own and operate Ludington Truck Tops at 302 5th Street, right across the street from Pomorski's. I've been there for quite some time, and I've experienced the rezoning issue back right after I first built in the early 80s. That whole corridor of South Madison was commercial, I believe, all the way to Whitehall Industries. The city rewrote their master plan in the early 80s. They rezoned it down, and I applied and rezoned the property back up to C2, where my business, Pomorski's and Schultz's Body Shop at the time, was down on the corner. And that was granted. That property that John's asking for, that vacant lot, was C1, I believe. And someone purchased it, was going to put a modular home on it or what have you, rezoned it to residential. I don't think it was a good fit. It never happened. I would encourage the council to consider rezoning this property because it's a good fit for not only John's business, but the neighborhood as a whole. I believe that you've encouraged more commercial activity on South Washington, which I commend. It needs to be done in that area, needs to be brought back. John's been a good neighbor. I don't think you should focus on what he intends to do. He just threw out some ideas, but if he has a potential to have that property rezoned, he has a lot of opportunities that he can do to enhance his business. I think that'll all be good. So I would encourage the council to approve that if they would. I would like to reinforce what the city manager brought up about other councils meeting. I am a member, I'm a trustee of Pere Marquette Township Board. I have encouraged at other meetings before too to attend meeting in different councils that I've served on, like the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Commission I've attended with John now. It was a good learning experience, just to learn how different bodies operate and what we do. And it was to my benefit to attend other meetings, and I've encouraged other people to do that. Our meetings now, we have the county commissioners that serve in our district attend our meetings and give us an update. The sheriff comes in and gives us a police report along with our department heads and what have you. But I think it's just a good learning curve, and I'll talk to our supervisor, but with my connections here in the city, I would offer to do that for both the township and the city, and I think we can work together there. But
Mr. Shabrowski, there's a 2-minute time limit that we've
I'm
kind of
sorry.
exceeded, and I appreciate that.
I would also like to commend you on that excellent presentation for Ukraine. That was very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Floor remains open for public comment.
Tom Rada, Dowland Street. My ward's counselor bravely offered a defense of firefighter Austin Billings at the end of last meeting, beyond the point of time that it could be refuted. He mentioned that Billings deserved a second chance and that there was a program to help felons become productive members of society. Counselor Johnson properly noted that Billings was not a part of the rehabilitative program, but not that Billings has already been given 7 second chances in his felonious career. Had my counselor seen firefighter Billings's application, which boasted only of 3 felonies in his past, rather than the majority of felony convictions already in his past, as can be seen in court records or as recently listed by the Mason County Press, maybe he would get the point that lying on one's employment application for the nation's most trusted profession is a squandering of yet another chance for Billings to show he is a reformed man. His lack of candor permeated over to the police department, where school resource officer Austin Morris appears to have perjured himself on a warrant application. Officer Morris created a phone conversation that he was not part of, but that both participants deny happened the way that he characterized it. His falsified assertion, accompanied by his misuse of the law enforcement information network to achieve his goal, shows that lying on applications is a new normal for our corrupted city officials. Counselors should not defend the indefensible conduct of untrustworthy city employees. Rather, they should honestly investigate those employees who fail to live up to our reasonable expectations and replace them when called for. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address council? If not, I'll close the floor to public comment and revert back. Seeking a motion to,
If I may, this is out of turn, but I have to. Just to clarify real quick, Mr. Billings has not lied. Not once did he lie. When he applied for the position within the fire department, on our application, there's not enough space for the number of felonies that he had. He was outright and honest with Fire Chief Henderson, with me, and with a number of the firefighters who actually recruited him to apply for the position. Upon his background check, all of those those items came up in his background. Mr. Billings was recommended by a number of his now fellow firefighters to apply for the position. He has earned the rest of the department's respect, and I appreciate council's understanding and willingness after you all were notified of this firefighter's hiring as well. However, I did feel the need to correct the statement as needed. Thank you.
Bear with me again while I read. Due to the potential impact of litigation strategy of the city pursuant to the Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act, I ask for a motion to adjourn for the purpose of moving into closed session to consult with legal counsel, limiting discussion to recently received attorney-client privileged communications regarding the action strategy of the city of Ludington with respect to the city's fire siren. Council, please note that entering into closed session for this stated reason requires 2/3 majority affirmative vote of the entire council. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
I'll support.
Motion by Counselor Bulger, second by Counselor Stibbits to recess for the purpose of moving into closed session pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act to consult with legal counsel, limiting discussion to the recently received attorney-client privileged communication regarding the action strategy of the city of Ludington with respect to the city's fire siren. Any questions, comments, or additions? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Terzano,
Aye.
Counselor Kane,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Winchesky,
Yes.
Counselor Bulger,
Yes.
Counselor Stibbits.
Yes.
6 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll ask for a motion to limit the participation in this closed session to council members, chief of police, mayor, city manager, city attorney, and city clerk. Have I missed anybody? Got you this time, chief. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Bulger, second by Counselor Winchesky to limit the participation of this closed session to council members, chief of police, mayor, city manager, city attorney, and city clerk. Do I have any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion is carried.
Your Honor, if I may,
Mhm.
we have a wonderful circular table set up. These closed meetings, when we're shouting at each other from one end of the dais to the other, really isn't effective communication. So I would respectfully ask that we consider taking advantage of this setup so we can have a more meaningful discussion.
Council, I see no problem with that or any objections. Without debate, let's move into that when we go to closed session. Ladies and gentlemen, council can only deliberate in this closed session. There will be no votes taken. Any decisions must be voted upon in open session.